Hi.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kenzie?
I'm doing so well. It's so nice to finally chat live. I've been
Yes.
following your Instagram for so many years now, so it's so cool to finally chat with you.
Oh, I'm honored. Honestly, I'm so
Oh
honored.
my gosh, no, I'm honored.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have worked with a lot of dancers who have had similar paths to you, so I figured that it would be such a great conversation that we can bring to some of the younger dancers about your journey, your path, and how you basically got to where you are now. So, why don't we dive in?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Thomas, and I am 22 years old, and I am currently a professional dancer with Orlando Ballet. That's
Awesome.
kind of like a little overview about me.
Yeah, Mackenzie, where did you train?
So I actually started dancing when I was 3, but I was more of a competition dancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, into contemporary, lyrical, jazz, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really get serious about dancing and into classical ballet until I was 15 years
Okay. Oh,
old.
wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started pretty late. Compared to most girls, it was kind of stressful getting into the ballet world because I would look around me and see all these girls my age and they were so far ahead, and I was like, oh no, should I be doing this? But I loved it. And so I was at a smaller school in Colorado Springs where I was from, called Samuel Ballet School. So I was there for about 2 years, and that's where I kind of got like my beginner training, which was really great because I really needed that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I ended up moving to Arizona to train at Master Ballet Academy, and I was there
Sure.
for about 2.5 years. So that's where I really got the good classical training that got me where I am now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I didn't realize that your classical training really came on the later side.
Yeah, it really came on the later side. And it's funny because when I talk to most people, they're like, there's no way that you started that late. And I was like, yeah, I
Right.
did. But, I kind of use it to help younger dancers. Sometimes I have people reach out to me and they're like, can I start dancing, at age 18 or 15? I'm like, if you have that determination and hard work and but
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of it has to do with having a good teacher too.
Yeah.
That plays a big part. So I was blessed in getting some really good teachers and good training.
Yeah, that plays such a huge part. I also feel pretty lucky in regard to the training I had growing up that really helped give me such a great framework for
Mhm.
where it took me. Now, with that being said, there must have been a major learning curve for you. Having been a competition dancer, in the more jazz, lyrical, like fun recital type stuff, and then you're going into
Academy, yeah.
Master Ballet Academy. I know it's an intense environment over there. I'm very familiar
Mhm.
with the environment. That must have been a major learning curve. So tell us a little bit about how that went.
Sure, yeah. So, when I first went to Masters, it was definitely a shock in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
because just the technique that all the girls had was just incredible. And I was just, looking at everyone and thinking like, oh my gosh, I want to be just like them. But I had so many bad habits, which I still do. There's still things that, like you're never gonna stop working on, until your career's finished. But just, going from like having to work on turnout because, in the jazz world and contemporary, like, yes, you still have that like ballet foundation, but that's not as focused,
Yeah.
in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a major shift for me, having to learn how to turn out properly. And
Mm-hmm.
also I, struggled with like arching my back because, it was just so much like moving your body and not having as much control. So
Yeah.
it was a really big shift for me. Um, but I feel like in the end, it was such a good move for me to switch to that classical world because it helped me become a better dancer overall.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such a misunderstanding with a lot of like younger dancers. They'll think that very heavy classical training can be somewhat like so rigid, almost limiting to building a framework for other aspects of dance. But I actually agree with you. I think it's quite the opposite. I think having that framework only strengthens you and helps
Definitely.
in regard to broadening your perspectives and what you can master in.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I actually ended up having a labrum tear Like,
Oh,
when was this? Oh my gosh, it was like almost a year ago, or no, over a
my
year ago. I had
gosh.
to think about it first. I was like, wow, that was so long ago. But I mean,
Mm,
and it part of it was genetics, but I ended up having to get surgery on it. And then it actually, I feel like, was a good thing because I got to retrain like completely and
mm,
kind of start from the beginning, which was kind of cool. So it's kind of like I was learning to do ballet all over again. But I feel like it helped me improve in those weak areas and gave me the chance to focus on those like little tiny details.
yeah. And
Yeah, so that was really
sometimes a situation like that, having an injury, or for example, like going through quarantine, was such an
mhm.
eye-opening experience for a lot of dancers because it forced them to take those steps back, whether
Oh
those
yeah.
steps were resting more, whether those steps were just going back to basics, going back to beginner, two hands at the bar type of work. So helpful for like regaining perspective and like and rebuilding
Mhm.
that framework that maybe you kind of needed to just like slow down and prevent another
Definitely.
injury.
Oh yeah, yeah. So when I kind of had my surgery right before everything closed down, which was
Wow.
kind of crazy because I was actually supposed to have my surgery scheduled for like a few days past when I actually had it. And
Hmm.
it was kind of like a crazy thing that happened because I got it scheduled a few days before and got it done and everything. And then those couple days later, everything shut down. So if I would have had my
Mm.
surgery at that first date that it was set, like I wouldn't have been able to have it, which was kind of crazy.
Gosh.
So it was like right when everything closed. And then
Right.
thankfully my PT stayed open. So I was
Hmm.
still able to go to PT, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really took that time to just focus on myself and focus on recovering. But yeah, that was definitely a struggle, a long process. But
Yeah.
it's good now. It definitely paid off.
Absolutely. So, Kenzie, that brings me to my next question is,
Mhm.
was there ever a point, a specific point in your training where you started to connect the dots between like, hey, what I'm fueling my body with is having some bit of an impact on, how I'm performing on stage, my recovery, and so forth?
Yes. So kind of like what we talked about when I got into ballet kind of late. When I got to masters, it was such a positive environment.
Hmm.
And I feel like Solomon and Irena, the teachers there, were very encouraging and
Were you focusing more on, how your body felt physically in regards to,
yes, like when I was in the school, I was just like fueling my body just whenever I needed to. But then
yeah,
once I got into the professional world, I realized how important that is. And I started to notice too, like in rehearsals, if I wouldn't stay hydrated or if I wouldn't snack, it would totally affect me throughout the day.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I would go to rehearsal and just be exhausted or not have energy, or my legs would cramp, my feet would cramp. And once I got into that world, I was like, okay, I really need to like take care of myself and like make sure I'm fueling my body. And especially with the strenuous schedule, because like when you're training, you do dance a lot, but once you get into the professional world, it's a whole different level.
One thing that I'm getting from this is, first of all, the gap from being a student to being a professional, very common what you experience in regards to, for whatever reason it might be, a lot of times students, they don't have the priority of like, I need to fuel my body in this such way,
Yeah.
mainly because sometimes it's being done for them, whether that's with like their guardian, parent, their teachers, their schools or studios, whatever it might be. You get into the professional world, and a lot of this, or for a lot of dancers, it might be getting into like the collegiate dance world. Everything now is on you. It's your
Right.
responsibility. And what it sounds like is that you needed, it was almost like a slap in the face because you realize like, okay, I have to start not just hydrating, but you mentioned specifically snacking throughout the day. I
Yeah.
have to have this very proactive approach to make sure I'm giving my body enough. And like that's a big thing, is that a lot of dancers will not even realize it. I know I focus a lot on my account in regards to restrictive eating habits, but a lot of dancers will fall under this category of unintentional under eating, where it's just like you're dancing all day, you're super busy, you're not necessarily feeling or thinking about your hunger cues, and then all of a sudden you are bonking out, or we call this like hitting the wall, extremely fatigued. And it sounds like for you, you had to realize like I need to eat pretty frequently throughout the day in order to prevent that from happening.
Right. And actually, right before I went to master's, I struggled with hypoglycemia. Before that, though, I'd have my mom making me food and everything. So I didn't have to worry about those things like you said. But
Right.
once I got into the professional world, it was a really big slap in the face. Like, okay, I really need to like make sure I'm taking care of myself. And especially with Nutcracker, had a ton of electrolytes and made sure I was snacking, and it was just such a game changer in my performance and the energy I had. And I really think food is so important in the dancer's life, and it's for our job, we're using our bodies, so it's like important that we take care of them the best we can.
Absolutely. And so much of that means eating enough, which is
Yes.
what can really fall to the waistline for a lot of
Mhm.
busy dancers who just don't realize it, that performance week can totally snowball. That's another point I want to bring up, is like the need for hydration, the need for snacking. It's not just in the moment for that one performance, but it's also like setting you up for tomorrow's performance and, the next day's performance. So just really being on top of that. So my
Mhm.
next question for you is, obviously dancers hyper focused mindset when it comes to ballet, especially, and you probably experienced this more when you started with that pre-professional training. Curious to hear about how you now in your professional career are able to integrate a bit more balance into your day so that you're not too tunnel vision on just your training.
I want to say one thing that was nice for me is actually starting kind of late in the ballet world. When I went to masters, there were so many girls that started so young and ended up getting burnt out. And
Yeah.
when I kind of started in that later stage, I didn't have any of those issues. And even now, like there are times where, I'm working so much and I do struggle to get burnt out at times, but that's when, you have to remember that there's other things to life besides dance.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things to do is spending time with my family. That's probably like one of my most favorite things. But they're not here in Florida, so I have to use FaceTime,
Yeah.
which is still a close second. But I also spend a lot of time with my friends. It's such a good group here at Orlando Ballet. I feel like we all get along so well and we're really close. So,
Yeah.
on the weekends, we actually do spend a lot of time together. But I also enjoy just like anything athletic, which I feel like is kind of funny because when I'm dancing all week long, you're taking such a toll on your body. But I love to golf and kind of just do those fun things. I like to bowl for fun and just, kind of do those like little fun things where you're still staying active, because I just like to get up and be productive.
I love that you're using other outlets in regards to whether that's, activities, being with friends, spending time with family, having time for those other outlets, because a lot of dancers,
Right.
especially the younger dancers, will, think that they just have to prioritize dance and that's it. And while it's important to prioritize dance and make sure you are, diligent and motivated with it, we also don't want it to be a source of burnout.
I feel like that's why so many young dancers burn out, though, because that's just their only focus, and it just takes a toll on you mentally and physically. But thankfully, my parents also helped me with that. They would always tell me, like, make sure you do other things besides dancing, especially when I moved away too, just to like prioritize other things and family time and just doing hobbies that I like, because, you don't want to have just one thing that you're focusing on, or else it's going to take a toll, on you mentally and physically down the road. If you take time to have balance, then it helps your dancing in the long run.
But having other experiences in life are all of the experiences you need to bring to the stage. You know what I mean? Because if you're picking up a different role, if you are, dance is an expression of of ourselves. It's an expression of a story that all, a previously written story. Either way, you're having to put a character and intertwine them within yourself. And I think having other experiences through life only helps to add like depth to your artistry.
Right. You are so right.
So my next question for you is, do you have any pre-performance rituals that you like to do before you get on stage?
I use my heating pad on like my calves, and I feel like if I don't use it on my calves before I go on stage, then just nothing goes right.
So my final question that I ask everybody on here is, how would you define what it means to be the healthy dancer?
Ooh, that is a good question. Prioritizing, your health and making sure that you are putting your body first and listening to yourself and making sure that you are fueling your body throughout the day, because I feel like, that's like probably one of the most important things to being a healthy dancer. And, also just like not overdoing it if your body's hurting, to listen to it. I've learned that, throughout the years with my hip too, kind of bugging me. I would push it to the edge, and then I ended up having to get surgery on it. So that kind of has taught me throughout, those few years to really listen to myself and make sure that I'm putting myself first.
Making sure that you are tuning in, listening to your body is a big one. Making sure that you're eating enough. Sometimes listening to hunger cues can be really tough during the day, during a busy performance schedule. So making sure that you're balancing that, proactive approach, but also listening to your body's needs, especially when it comes to rest, and knowing what your body's signs are, instead of pushing it, to the point of injury.
Definitely.
Yeah. So McKenzie, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor getting to talk to you, and I just love your page and everything that you're doing for the whole dance community. It's really awesome.
I appreciate that so much. I'm honored to chat with you tonight, and we will be in touch.